Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Let's just dig right into it. Now, this is basically a prediction for the upcoming fights of the Charlo brothers. Now, both of these guys will be fighting and highlighting the card for PBC on Fox. So let's just dig into their fights, break them down, and make the obvious predictions. You have Jermall Charlo, who's 27-0 with 21 knockouts. He'll be going against Micawber. Now, basically, Micawber, or Matt Korboff, is what a lot of people call him, is basically a replacement fighter for Willie Monroe Jr. after he tested positive for a banned substance. Now, if you look at Jermall Charlo's height and reach, he stands at 6 feet tall with a 73.5-inch reach. On the other hand, Matt Korboff, he stands at 5'11 with a 70.5-inch reach. So you already know Jermall Charlo has those advantages. Matt Korboff, it has a record of 28 wins, 1 loss with 14 knockouts. The 1 loss in his career came from an Andy Lee in 2014, in which he was stopped in the 6th round. Other than that, he's won every other fight he's been involved in. He's a pretty tough and rugged competitor, but make no mistake, stepping in with a guy who's already been stopped, who's not a known or elite level fighter, and who's never had a premier level fight, he is what you would call a C-level fighter. I think he's slightly above a tomato can, but he can still be classified as one because he won't be a signature win. He will not give Jermall Charlo a huge challenge in this fight. If he does give Jermall Charlo a huge challenge in this fight, then that will outline some flaws in Jermall Charlo. I believe Jermall Charlo will make easy work against Matt Korboff, and I know a lot of people are saying that Matt is going to cause, these problems for Jermall. He's a tough and rugged fighter. I think he's a decent fighter, but I don't think he's good enough to compete with any of the top level guys at 160. And if Jermall Charlo is who he says he is, this should be a cakewalk and another bum fest for him to go through if we're being unbiased. Now, Matt Korboff fought a Jose Uzcategui back in 2014, and he defeated him over a 10-round unanimous decision. So he didn't stop him, he didn't hurt him and destroy him in the fight. It went to a decision, and he won the decision. Now, that's great for him, but this was before Jose was who he is now. Matt, at this point, is pretty much an unknown. His last several fights have come by way of decision since his loss to Andy Lee. So you shouldn't be looking for a knockout or explosive power from him. In my opinion, the reason why I believe that the Charlos and Al Heyman and PBC picked Matt Korboff as the perfect replacement opponent is he doesn't have enough power to stop anybody. So at this point, his last 4 fights all went to the decision. So you're not expecting him to get the stoppage over, Jermall Charlo at this point. So it's very little risk. You expect Jermall Charlo to dominate and maybe even get a knockout in what we would call a highlight fight, or if we're being honest, a bum bash. So let's not overrate the win because it's going to come. But if he gives Jermall Charlo any type of problems, that is going to be interesting to look at because it will be very telling. Also, Matt Korboff is 35 years old, so not only does Jermall Charlo have the height reach advantage, he also has youth on his side. Now let's dig into Jermall Charlo and his opponent. Jermall Charlo is 31-0 with 15 knockouts. His opponent will be a Tony Harrison. Now, Tony Harrison is 27-2 with 21 knockouts, but he's been stopped twice in his 2 losses. So both of their opponents have already been stopped twice, one by Andy Lee. Now, Tony Harrison has already been stopped by Willie Nelson in 2015, and then most recently in 2017 by Jared Swift Hurd. So you can't expect too much from Tony Harrison in that regard. Tony Harrison is on a 3-fight win streak, but again, is what we would call another bum bash showcase fight. They just want to show these guys get a couple knockouts on PBC on Fox. And that's pretty much all this is. These guys aren't fighting elite level, top level opponents. I find it funny, the hypocrisy in these guys, and not them in particular, but a lot of these fanboys who come out and bias media, bias new media, all these biased channels, the biased LDBC, the liars den boxing community. These guys come out and then they criticize DAZN and say DAZN needs to have better fights. Then they turn around and criticize Canelo Alvarez and say he needs to fight better opponents. But what about the Charlo brothers? Both of these guys are in desperate need of signature wins, and yet you got both of these guys preparing on Fox, and yet these guys are coming out facing two opponents who've already been stopped before. So you have guys who have suspect chins and what we would call a showcase fight. Now, I don't expect every fighter to have a very tough and hard and difficult fight, but I do expect you to take step-up fights at a time, and these guys aren't doing that right now. Both of these guys are fighting in a bum bash, and that's fine, but let's not have this biased new media coming out criticizing everyone else, saying the zone isn't making the fights, because all you hear about these guys criticize the zone again and again and again, but yet they don't realize is that PBC is putting on these same fights. We don't fanboy for promotional companies or networks. We're honest and unbiased about everything that we see, and if we're honest, these guys have taken two tune-up fights, and they should both get the stoppage. If it ends any differently, we'll have a lot of questions. Once again, it's the IBFP. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.